Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Ancient Warfare Answers with me, Murray. I am going to answer one of your questions in just a moment. But before that, of course, you can ask us a question. You can send us a telegram or a fax or a telex or a letter or a postcard or an email. You can get us on Messenger. You can get us on Twitter. You can get us on Facebook. You can send us an email, all those things. You can back us on Patreon /Ancient Warfare Podcast. Back us at the level of Optio, Centurion, or Legionary. And the question I'm about to attempt to answer, is how did the Romans keep track of who actually completed their years of service? What's to stop you from deserting and showing up to unfairly claim your pension or whatever? Presumably this could be tricky in an empire of mostly illiterate people from all over the known world without their government driver's license and passports. And I don't know who this has come from, but the first answer is the people who matter are much more literate, I think, than we expect. So the reality of the Roman army, and we only get glimpses, but the reality of the Roman army is they were fabulous record keepers. And they kept a lot of records, most of which don't survive in the archaeological record. But they knew who you were, where you were, what you were doing, where you were transferring to, how many years service you had remaining. So, again, we get some glimpses of the actual level of paperwork that the Romans loved, and they did indeed love it all. So, for instance, the signifer in a Roman legion. And, of course, there's a signifer for every century. So there are lots of them, and they are therefore responsible for 80 men. In their responsibilities, other than carrying the standard, of course, they also were the record keepers of that century. And so what we find with some of the depictions of them on tombstones is, of course, they carry a small box, which is probably or almost certainly intended to represent the writing tablets, the codex and Satos, or the volume of records that they kept, which managed the finances of their unit. And that, of course, would say, what pay you owed, what retirement fund you had owing or were in arrears for, all that sort of very, very accurate number crunching, which is part of record keeping. And again, we have lots of that surviving in the Vindolanda tablets, for instance, and in some other letters from Egypt and elsewhere, where that kind of detail is referred to. Again, we have records of the transference of people between units and roles and, even whole provinces, and that kind of intricate and elaborate record keeping is just a sort of a suggestion of exactly how much record keeping the Romans did actually go in for. And of course, the questioning you're going to get to prove who you are, going back to the Greek, going back to the Athenian record, for instance, we know that you needed to say who you were, who your father was, and sometimes even who your grandfather was, and what deme you came from. And, these are a much smaller unit than the later Roman armies, obviously. And so you would, of course, give that detail, and the probable reality is they would probably ask a demesman of yours to corroborate that if that's the case. And they would be able to follow their own records and go, well, that, we got who you are and who your father and who their grandfather was. So in the Roman system, of course, you've got not necessarily keeping your copy of a record, but chances are you would need to say who you were, who you enrolled with, when you enrolled, and all that sort of material. And again, the archaeological record comes to our rescue in a case, and that is through the diplomas. Now, of course, diplomas are only for auxiliary troops, the peregrini, the people who are outside the Roman citizens, which only is useful up to the period of 212, because, of course, after 212, everyone's a Roman citizen who is a freeborn occupant of the Roman Empire. So you've got auxiliary units, you've got the Roman Navy, you've got the Praetorian Guard, and the urban cohorts. So all those we have have some kind of diploma, which is normally issued to a discharged legionary. A discharged auxiliary, generally granting them citizenship. They could then re-enroll as a legionary. So, you've got all those sorts of records, which show you a glimpse again of exactly how intricate and exact Roman record keeping was. The ones we've got preserved, of course, they're 2 sheets. One would be kept in a central administrative block in Rome, and the other one was with the individual. So, they had this proof of their service. And we've got, other glimpses of exactly how much record keeping Romans in general took, and again, very little of it survives. But we know how much information, for instance, the Romans would keep in the census, which again is proving who you are and what your property is and all of that sort of thing. We do have a couple of papyrus rolls from Fayum that preserve the career and sort of like an archive of careers of Roman soldiers. And probably, therefore, there were other similar documents created during the Roman Republican Empire. Just they don't survive. So therefore, we're sort of stuck with 1 or 2 that do survive. But these things are amazing because they are the one that records the career of Lucius Julius Serenus, for instance, is 4 meters long. And contains 14 tax receipts, letters, and all these other ideas and bits of their career. And we have some others that are part of a duty roster for an auxiliary cavalry unit, and other sort of bits of evidence that tell us that there was a huge amount of record keeping that was maintained and kept. So the reality for a Roman shyster trying to steal someone else's identity is that you would need to know a huge amount of information about who they were in their career in order to defraud them, really. Not that it couldn't happen. Maybe there is a movie to be made or a play to be written about just doing exactly that. And again, when we look at the inscriptions, a lot of these funerary inscriptions are very detailed career paths and career records. And in virtually all cases, what's claimed on the inscription would have been backed up by official documents. It's very unlikely that someone's going to put an inscription up in a province of the Roman Empire that's lying. I served in this unit, and then I transferred to this unit, and I served there, and I served as this, and then I went there, and then I served as that, and actually have none of it be true. I mean, it's, again, not inconceivable that you've got someone who would make up a military career to make themselves or big note themselves in a small community. But again, if anyone chose to investigate, it would be very quickly discoverable. Oh, I've got a pussycat visiting me. Hello. Whether that was actually true or not. But I think for the most part, you're going to have a very big official document and administrative corpus backing up what you're doing and who you are and where you were and what you were doing. We don't get anyone complaining that they were required to serve more years than they should have and things like that. So I think that the administration of the Roman legions was probably, officious, but also very efficient, if that's even a thing. But they were very thorough about keeping their records. So I hope that answers your question. And join me again next time in the new year of 2023 for more Ancient Warfare answers. Thank you.